Hip impingement, or FAI, doesn't need to be super complicated. There's a clear plan of attack, and I'm going to show you today some treatment options that you may not be aware of. Before we start, let me show you a little anatomy so you can get some context of why certain things will be working. Hip impingement happens when the ball and the socket don't fit super well together. This mismatch causes some bony obstruction, especially when going into hip flexion and what we call internal rotation. Over decades, excessive rubbing here and neglect can sometimes lead to excessive bony gloat, tearing of the labrum, and eventually arthritis of the hip itself. What creates the pinching? The bony overgrowth that starts the impingement process are usually in two locations. Number one is the top. This is what we call the acetabular rim. This is what we call a pincer deformity, where bony overgrowth comes this way, and as you start to move the hip into flexion and internal rotation, it can pinch from a top part. The second one is called a cam deformity. This is where the head of the femur is no longer shaped like a ball. It's more of like an egg. And that's from overgrowth that happens into this area down here. And again, as you start to go here, and I apologize, this model's fighting me, here and across, you'll have a little bit more impingement to that location. And also people have a variation of both. Our thought is this happens mainly when you have an active younger individual when they're going through growth spurts. High impact sports in childhood or adolescence may be a contributing factor. This can lead to poor joint mechanics later on, but also genetics may be a slight factor in this with some people. Where do people feel hip impingement? The first area is right into here, what we call the C sign. People make a C with their hands and they put it right into here and they start saying, it's just kind of into here. Usually in the crease of the hip is super common. As it starts to wrap around the flank, it can be so there too. Even less people have it more where the thumb wraps to the back of the hip here too. Into the glute region of the piriformis can be very tender for these people, and sometimes into the deep crease part of the hip as well. Things that bother them tend to be twisting, standing on one leg. Even lifting the involved leg can be painful, such as getting in and out of a car. Deep squat positions are usually a big no-go as it creates more pain into the crease of the hip here. While surprisingly things like bending like this are okay, but when they go too far, the hip runs out of range because of the pinching and it starts to hurt even more. Prolonged sitting tends to hurt as well, as it hurts many things. And then also crossing the leg is a very common thing that people show us in our telehealth sessions, which bothers them. And certainly this bothers them too, bringing it across. It's like they say, this side feels really greased up and good, and this side feels like it's up and super stiff all the time. It's like it won't let go. Clicking and popping is common, but catching and grinding are not. Those are also advanced conditions that we'll find, such as labral tears, which is usually the locking, or the grinding, like you can hear it across the room. Those are going to be more of arthritic conditions. Now, there's plenty of things that can help you that are not surgery. Number one is avoiding movements that are provoking. A lot of people will keep duplicating over and over again the stretch that is actually the provocative test, called Feder's test, or even close to Scour's test. They'll try to get their knee across their body, which is not a good thing to do. So there's two ways to address this. Number one is don't provoke the area. Number two is you can build up resiliency and capacity of the hip to offset chance of it getting progressively worse. Which brings us to the other things you can do. The second thing is strengthening the hip and the legs. This oftentimes required modified range squatting, since squatting is oftentimes a provoking factor. Deadlifting and single leg exercises. Again, if you don't feel comfortable doing these on your own, you need to have supervision and coaching to make sure the reps and sets and intensity are actually correct for you. I've met a lot of people who have hurt their back doing some of these exercises because they try to do it on their own, but their hip is not functioning well, so their back takes the load. Have a coach coach you. If you guys want help from us, we have telehealth sessions. Our contact is below. Next, doing targeted physiotherapy exercises is oftentimes helpful. The areas of highest concern is the glute max, the abs, the quads, and the obliques. Personally, I think that when we're doing core work, we should do an isometric non-movement version, not a repetitive movement version. So this usually includes things like planks, side planks, and so on. Crunches, V-ups, and those types of things are not the top of my physiotherapy list. We have another video in the corner which you're going to love, which covers a lot of the exercises that we like here at Performance Plays. Lastly, stretching can really help. Stretching the mid-back, the hip capsule, and the ankles are surprisingly very important if we use something called the regional interdependence model, which allows us to see that some areas are more capable of movement, while other ones are designed for more stability. A good strength conditioning program to help emphasize these attributes is usually needed. Also, working on trigger points into the muscles of chronic conditions can be very helpful. The glute medius trigger point is oftentimes a high payoff point. Now, when is surgery needed? Usually when you're a non-responder, and I don't mean that from a perspective of you did your own rehab because you found random things on YouTube and it didn't really help. I wouldn't consider that a non-responder. I would consider that a poor program. The fact of the matter is a lot of people don't actually do the right dosage and intensity to make the adaptation that we actually need. If we need the glutes and the quads strong to stop the impingement from happening, then the dosage and weight is important. So if you've done good physiotherapy and good weight training and good stretching with the right amount of dosage, you're not responding, and you've changed your lifestyle factors, perhaps a surgery is something that we would consider. My observation with working with thousands of people with this condition is that it will become painful at a short period, and if you resolve it, it'll become non-painful. But there's clear signs of lack of range of motion, gait abnormalities, core weakness, leg weakness that will present itself even during the times where you don't have any pain. So getting a good program in place to mitigate return is a big part, because if this keeps coming back over and over again, like I mentioned before, or the current theory is that if you have repeated hip impingement incidences, you may have labral issues later or hip arthritis, which then may end up with a hip replacement. Again, we can't predict your future, but if I had to guess, a lot of you will manage the pain if left up to your own device versus actually managing the function. If you guys want to see another great video on hip impingement, click on the video in the corner. We have all of our free content on YouTube for this, and we also have a great webinar in the bottom of the description for this video. If you guys want our help, reach out to us.